A little tip I have, always increase the rent no matter what the property managers say. That house down the road was like 600 grand. So I just yelled out 450 grand and then I won the house. Yeah.
Wow.
But I just looked at this guy and go, yeah, he's a freaking young guy. I'm a young guy. I can go buy properties. And I went and blew away. Like I went and bought like 4 or 5 properties.
What?
Yeah. I most of my friends and family are saying, Ali, get out, tap out. We told you this is bad. And that fires my fuel. Because I go, you know what? F you.
Does it deter you?
If it's too hard for you and I can do this, then on the other side of this, I'm going to be so much more powerful than you. I'm going to be the winner.
Welcome guys to another episode here on the Tax podcast. The podcast is all about bringing on really good guests that are clients and friends of Tax with amazing journeys, and it's been very much a channel about inspiring people to have a go out there and have a crack at property investing, but it also has to start somewhere. And for us today, we've got Ali with us today to share his journey. And his journey is very amazing. I've had a bit of a moment to talk to him about where he started, but he's got an amazing journey to share with the audience today. So welcome, Ali.
Thanks very much. Thank you. And thanks for having me on.
Yes, and Ali, we've got to know you for almost as long as we've had the business.
Yeah.
So that's a real statement for you to be able to sit here and share your story, and we're very grateful for it because it's quite the story that you've got. And we're looking forward to unraveling this as much as you are comfortable doing so. Where did it all start for you, Ali? Take us all the way back.
Yeah, okay. Being around the frame of property investing, I'll start with the start of the property journey. So, and also there was a little bit of like a lead up to let people know I didn't come with a silver spoon. So my parents immigrated to Australia with like $1,000. So typical old school immigrant story from the 80s. My dad did make money and made sure to give me none of it and made sure to let me know that, hey, this world is up to you to figure it out and this is all mine and I've made my money and you can make yours. And being a younger person, watching your parents have a little bit of wealth and so on, that kind of cut you. Going, no, Dad, I want some of this. But then at the same time, now I'm older, I'm very grateful for that kind of the kick up the butt sort of thing.
What age did you come to Australia?
3.5.
3.5 years old, and then sort of you went through school. Where did you school? Pymble
Public. Yeah.
Pymble Public, and so you were, what age were you? What grade were you when you sort of had to make this? You hit a fork in the road.
I was always going to go to uni because my parents, they were like, that's why we immigrated. We immigrated for you to get a better life and education. So like that was always the plan.
Not to pick up the shovel.
Yeah, and then you're sort of like this innocent guy going to careers advisor in year 10 and the careers advisor's like, oh, you should quit. So I go home and tell my dad, oh yeah, the careers advisor said I should quit. Oh man, the amount of F words that came out of his mouth that night. And he was like, no, you can tell her to go, fuck this, fuck that. That's why we came to this country. You're going to uni and this and that. I'm like, oh, okay. I was just passing on the message.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting. But then that helped me a lot and that shapes a lot of what I do. Interestingly though, when I got when I got married, my dad gave my wife and I $20,000 to go towards the deposit of a house. And then my wife and I discussed it and then blew the whole thing away on our honeymoon. So we thought, you know what, we can save the 20 grand later.
As you do when you're young.
That's right. And we got married pretty young, like when we were in our 20s. And then when we came back, we went on a big honeymoon. It was like 3-4 months. And so when we came back, we actually, just got our heads down and got that 20 grand back within like a few months. It was like 6 months or something. We got it back and we're like, oh, we're pretty good at this. And so then we did a little bit more saving and then we were like looking at buying an apartment, young couple kind of buying an apartment. And still to this day, I burn when I remember I was in an apartment auction in Artarmon telling the guy that he can stick his 285 grand up his butt because it's not worth any more than 280. Lo and behold, it's probably a $2 million apartment now. So yeah, I still remember that moment, telling the guy that, and he goes, all right, no worries, it's going for 285, I guess. Yeah, apartment right across from Artarmon station. So that was a good burner. And then around that time we were looking, we fell pregnant and started, a baby was coming along, and all of a sudden I was like, you know what? I don't want an apartment. I want a house. I want a backyard and I want all of this stuff, and I want the kids to have all of this. But all of that stuff was way more than 280 grand in Sydney. And so I was kind of like, what do we do? And I don't want to live in an apartment. And so we went to the Central Coast, which is a common thing that many people do. And Central Coast was really good. We bought our first house for 270 grand.
So lifestyle reasons, Ali, or more so from a
price point. Yeah, because I wanted to live in a house.
Yeah.
And when I started my journey, I was like 26. So most people get married in like their 30s and, have kids if they do later. But I had my kids at like 26 and 27. And my parents had theirs at 20. So I thought I was running behind. I thought I was too old. And so I just couldn't afford in my 20s to buy a $500,000-$600,000 house in Sydney, which was sort of the going rate at the time. And then Central Coast was like half the price and it made more sense. And we moved to Carryong, which was like the closest to Sydney. And our office was in Hornsby. So it was only like, 35-minute drive.
Yeah.
So we lived there and had a good lifestyle with the kids growing up and so on. And ended up actually being a pseudo property investor there by accident. So there was a house that was like a mortgagee in possession house. So we were living in this little house that we renovated and did a lot of young couple renovation, the block type thing, did it all up ourselves. And then we were just walking in the area with the kid one day, a few years after owning it or 2 years after owning it. And then we came across this house that was just like mortgagee in possession. And it was
someone, obviously, for those that don't know, is where the bank
had defaulted. Well, the bank had taken the thing back. So ANZ Bank, the bank had taken the house back because the people couldn't afford to pay their mortgage, right? And it was actually interesting because the house was really trashed. And I'd heard that these people had won the lotto and blow their money away. And basically it was a mortgagee in possession. It was but it was a really big, nice house on this corner block. And it was like a beautiful home, but it was really trash, but it was a really big house.
You saw the potential.
Yeah. And then, house down the road, 3 doors down, had just sold for $601,000. And this thing was a mortgagee auction. And I thought, you know what, I'll just go to the auction and see what happens. And then it's bidding, in the 300s. And I was like, that house down the road was 600 grand. So I just yelled out 450 grand. And then I won the house. I had no idea I bought this house. And then we looked at, okay, do we sell this other house? And we actually didn't need to sell it because we already had a 200 grand mortgage on it. And it was renting for $350 a week or something.
Yeah.
And so, basically we ended up keeping that one and then having this other one.
Did you move into this mortgagee possession house?
Yeah, it was like
a block house?
It was really interesting because no one was really that interested in it.
Because it was dilapidated.
Yeah,
right?
But the house was 4 years old.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. I went in there and I started renovating and painting things and I was like, wait a minute, this thing was properly trashed because there was things on the windows and date markers, it was 4 years old, 5 years old. And I went to my wife, I was like, we got a bargain. This is a brand new house. This is amazing, And so we just basically
just needed it once over.
And so we kind of, one thing led to another and we were having kind of the good life in the Central Coast. But to be honest, if I look at it and I reflect on it personally, I was probably moving along a path where maybe some of the listeners might be going along, where I did the duties of society. I went and got married. And then I had a girlfriend. And then my parents started going, well, why aren't you engaged? Okay, fine, I'll go get engaged. Everyone told me to get engaged. Okay, fine, go get married. No worries, get married. Okay, fine, have kids. No worries, have kids. Go buy a house, go buy this stuff. And
did you make those own decisions, Ali, or was it
in hindsight, no, I didn't.
The pressure of
the
family,
made
society?
It, but if you asked me then, I would have puffed my chest out and told you, I'm a big man and I made all these decisions myself. So if you asked me then, I made the decisions myself.
But in hindsight?
If I want to be brutally honest, no, I didn't. It was just people convincing me these were the right things to do. And I said, oh, well, guess what everyone else does, and I'll just do it.
And is it the nature of yourself and the relationship you have with your family in that, a lot of things that your parents say you do? I'm very much like that myself, and I'm inspired by the parents.
I think most people are like that.
Yeah. And so it sort of led you on that journey of buying a house, getting married, settling early because you felt the pressure of having family early because your parents did when they were early 20.
Yeah, I grew up,
Yeah. So it all worked out well in the end, but the pressures of the surrounding. And so I guess it's a big thing, isn't it? The people that surround you has a big impact on those decisions that you make for yourself.
A huge impact, yeah. And at that time, that's actually a perfect point because I was living on the Central Coast and I was kind of very well off in my area. I was like this cool guy that drove nice cars, worked for an engineering company, nicest house, all of this stuff. But it was all kind of fake because I was in the Central Coast, and like it was all like, 500-600 grand stuff. And if I moved to Sydney, I would have been nothing. I would have been living in an apartment, which I soon found out, And so then I had a bit of a health scare, and some other stuff happened with the kids where I was looking at their schooling going, I don't really think this is good for their future. And I was brought up around academics and stuff, and I want better opportunities. So yeah, look, we've got a house and we've got an investment property. We can easily move our whole life to Sydney. So we just sold everything up and started moving towards Sydney and buying around in Sydney. And that was around the time of like that 2014, 15 crazy boom where like you were going into places that were advertised for like 1 million and selling for 1.5 or 1.5 and selling for 2.5. And you just like, what the hell's going on here? And I got stuck into that.
That was in the middle of the big wave.
Yeah.
2010.
So I remember, I'd put my family's like life on the line. My wife, who I always, give so much credit to, basically came along for the ride and said, yeah, let's sell all our assets, which normally most guys I've met are like, how the hell could you convince your wife to do that? But yeah, she came along and we did that. And then here I am going, oh crap, I promised my wife for like a great life and everything, and we can't even afford a house now in Sydney and everything.
And you had already sold everything?
Yeah, I already sold everything. Yeah.
Wow. So just to explain to the viewers out there, what's happening in that period? You sell your properties. You got two properties. You sell both. So you moved to Sydney and you're renting. Is that right? While you're in Manila?
I could have afforded to sell because my parents had a holiday house not that far away from where I was living.
Okay.
So I was like, you know what, I'll just go live in their house.
Camp there for a while?
Until we find a new place. So yeah, we were there for about 6 months while we were scoping out a new place. And we had like 700 grand down payment from all the profit we made. And it was still not enough money, for what we wanted to buy, because we wanted to buy like a nice family home in the area that we wanted to be in, like in a nice area, which was like $1.5 to $2 million properties. And they were all going close to that 2 million. So we were missing out on everything. I was getting really depressed and don't know what to do. Then I came across this is sort of interesting. I came across this guy who's quite famous online. He was on TV and on Facebook, and, he's got like all these properties and he's making all this money. And I was like, oh, well, let me go learn from him. But I didn't actually learn from him. What I did was, again, like most people, which don't do this, is the lesson from today, is you're not an expert. So I thought I was an expert. I just looked at this guy and go, yeah, he's a freaking young guy. I'm a young guy. I can go buy properties. I'll go on realestate.com.au. And I went and blew away like a lot of money I went and bought like 4 or 5 properties. And I went to Queensland. I went all these places and I basically leveraged myself. And then I'm like a year or two into it. And then I'm like, this is really hard, and I've bought all these properties and, nothing's really going up. I thought I'd make all this money, and what happened to this guy online and, et cetera, et cetera. And then, because I was like, okay, what am I going to do here? I had this whole idea by looking at a couple of videos going, he buys properties and then in a year's time, he refinances and buy another one. So I'll just buy 5. And then in a couple of years' time, I'll refinance and buy another 5. No, I couldn't do any of that because I bought the wrong things and had no idea on strategies, none of that. I guess I thought I was an expert, and I realized as talking to the experts, I'm not an expert, and I was humbled over a few years.
And what is it that a buyer's agent generally would do different to the way that you would have thought about your strategy?
They buy thousands of properties a year. You don't.
Yeah.
So like, that's it. They won.
Yeah.
They beat you.
And
any day.
Data.
Yeah.
They've got the data.
Aside from all of the data and all of that, it doesn't matter, because what I've realized through my own journey of owning lots of properties now, which, I've got like 11 now, there's 3, I've kind of broken down to 3 phases in property. There's property acquisition is one phase, property holding is another phase, and property exiting is another phase. I have realized I'm good at acquisition. I've had to learn how to be good at holding, because holding is pretty hard. And
especially when you're talking about
so many
properties and
all of that stuff. Yeah.
Then you're leveraged to the point where you can't borrow more, and that means that you're balancing between living a life and also holding property, right? That's what you mean by holding. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and like, for example, we were leading up to 2020, 2021 or whatever, when the interest rates weren't going to go up and they were going to be all low for a few years. I was like on a party. I thought, this is great. I'm making X $1,000s a month in profit off the rents and all that. And all of that disappeared overnight with all these interest rates hikes. And so I didn't want to lose the property, so I had to hold them. And that meant, hustling, extra jobs, extra money, wherever we could, just pay whatever we could just to hold the properties. So yeah, I guess going back to the point of the buyer's agent, the data is one thing, but the skill of buying and negotiating a property, they're going to beat you any day of the week. You might sell to yourself, yeah, man, I'm the best. I went to like JB Hi-Fi and I got the TV for like $2,000, when it was $4,000. So I'm the best negotiator. No, you don't know how to buy a house, mate. That's the bottom line. We all think we're great negotiators. I went and bought this car for like, $15,000. It was listed for 20. I'm a great negotiator. You're not. Negotiating is not part of buying a house. It's an entire like ecosystem of stuff. There's, inspections, there's buildings, there's locations, there's everything that there is. It's such a complex thing. So
gives you buying power, right? Once you understand these pieces that together gives you good negotiation power.
Exactly. Yeah. And so these guys are going to be able to negotiate and buy that property on so many different levels than what we can.
And if you get the right negotiation of the right price, that means you're building equity in this property, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially if today it's worth, if you're paying 5% under because of X, Y, Z, and you go to revalue that property in 3 months and the market's moved, you've already built a lot of potential equity in your property.
Yeah, there's that as well.
Uplift.
A lot of that is true, but I look at it from a different point of view. I don't look at the data and that they've got access to anything special. I'll do it another way. So when I walked into your office, there was a whole bunch of people working there. So in my mind, I thought, I'm never going to be better at him at doing my tax depreciation because he's got like 30 people there. So he's got 30 more capability than I am. So why would I even try? I'll just use him because he's an expert, And so that's kind of the idea is those people have a team of people that are doing everything. So why would I try to beat them and think I'm going to be better than them? So I'll just pay them money and they can do that for me. In the beginning, it was hard to swallow the idea of paying someone money for that. But once I guess, saw the huge advantage, because going back to that story of the 5 properties, once I offloaded one, got a little bit of cash, and then rather than doing everything myself, then I was able to get the property in the next one and 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 so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Because what I did was I started trusting the experts. When I say this, it's not everything is, beautiful. Everyone always comes and talks about all their successes, but there's definitely been a lot of challenges and failures as well. So it's never sugarcoated.
Could you maybe share with us some of those challenges that you had along the property journey?
Yeah. Where do we start? So I bought an apartment in Jindabyne. I thought it was great. It was just before everything went big, before COVID and all of that, for like $108,000, right? It was making me great money. But what happened was someone fell down the block of stairs while they were drunk, and then they sued me. And I didn't have insurance. So what happened was I had insurance. The settlement was delayed, and so my insurance got pushed back, and it was like 2 weeks before the insurance actually kicked in after settlement. And the guy fell down 9 days after I had settlement. He fell down the stairs and then he sued me. I ended up spending like it was a very stressful 2 years of my life. They tried to sue me for $1 million in damages, and I spent like $200,000 getting out of that. And I had to sell the unit to sort of just, cover for those expenses. Story number 2, I had all the insurance and I had everything. And I bought a house in Perth, my first house in Perth, and great house, $335,000, got it insured, and then basically going to have some minor renovations done, some paint and some blinds, and get it tenanted. All of this happened just before Christmas, right? And so they couldn't get it done in time. And so the property was empty over Christmas, New Year's for 2 weeks. And there was a ladder in there from the painting, right? So I'm on an overseas holiday at this time, and I get phone calls about my house that got trashed by junkies, right? So basically, junkies moved into this vacant house over New Year's and had a New Year's Eve party where they broke everything in the house. Like, as in, they tore off the kitchen cupboards off the walls. They broke every single mirror, every single light fitting, every single door. Everything on that house was destroyed. And then when I put in the claim for insurance, they walked in and they're like, oh, there's a ladder there. Yeah, you said you had tenanted the property. You didn't say you were doing renovations, major renovations. And I was like, no, I'm not. And they were like, look, we'll just cancel your policy. We'll just refund you the money. So they did me in basically. So they didn't reject my claim. What they did was they cancelled my policy on the basis that I misrepresented myself. I could have fought them for it, but then there would have just been more money. So they just threw me into the fire. And then I had this house in Perth that was continually being attacked. I was overseas on a family holiday trying to figure out what am I going to do with this place, So I landed and then I basically had to go over to Perth and spend 2 weeks
rectifying
and renovating, and it was about, I spent $100,000 in 2 weeks. I've never spent that much money. So that was another interesting one.
And so I guess maybe to sort of mitigate some of these for people out there, what are some of how would you have mitigated, say for example, because the place is being renovated, what is it that you could have done that would have potentially avoided?
I just had to have just been a lot more open and clearer with my insurance company. So this house, again, I had it vacant again because I just sold it and I was renovating again. So I just basically emailed them. I guess I've been burnt that way. So I emailed them like every second week going, hey, remember, this is vacant. If you need any updates on my policies, let me know. But I'm letting you know in writing.
It's really important to get disclosure because, of course, with Duo, we've just started offering insurance. One of the things we do mention on your first point is that insuring the property at the time of exchange. That's something because from the time of exchange to the time it's settled, yes, you don't own it, but technically the person who you buy it off, the vendor, can always say, well, I'm going to walk away from this. And if you don't take on the risk, right, you lose your deposit because I'm happy to take on the risk as long as you lose your deposit. So that's why I suggest that, because a friend of mine has actually happened to them, that I recommend to every customer, make sure you get the insurance done at the time of exchange because you are open to risk as well. And then the next point is that you're saying, right, Ali, is that you should get insurance and always disclose information. So if you're doing a renovation, you actually tell the insurer that you are planning to do renovations. Is that what the suggestion is?
And what I realized was if you're telling them that your property is tenanted, if it's tenanted for a week, then that week you're uninsured. So you have to let them know, hey, it's untenanted this week.
That's great information there.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people that don't know that.
Yes, I didn't know that, and I lost $100,000 as a result of it.
So guys, if you're thinking about investing or already investing, and the people that are investing, even with one property, make sure you get the insurance policy sorted and disclose with insurance when the property is vacant to make sure that you continue getting insurance, especially, and it is very common. I've heard situations about, drug users,
Vacant properties are very attractive. And when it's vacant, if you don't let them know it's vacant, it's their easiest way to get out of it. They go, oh, it's vacant. You told us it's tenanted. You said it's $450 a week. There's nothing in a week here. And you're like, but I'm in between tenants. Well, that happened when you're in between. So that was like, I guess, a hard lesson to learn, But like I said, there's that, but then I have like another 9 or 10, well, I've purchased 15 properties and I now hold 11. And
does it deter you from investing in these situations?
No,
because it sounds like expensive fixes, $100,000, $200,000 worth of legal fees dealing with the gender buying property. Does it ever deter you? Like, should someone be deterred from investing?
Yeah, my personality is such that those things make me more attracted. Because what I think is most people get deterred, and most people, like when I'm going through that stuff, most of my friends and family are saying, mate, get out of this, tap out. We told you this is bad. And that fires my fuel because I go, you know what, F you. That means that if it's too hard for you and I can do this, then on the other side of this, I'm going to be so much more powerful than you. I'm going to be the winner. And so, I remember actually on that actual very note, my wife was like, we were overseas and we were actually separate overseas as well. So we were on the phone when this happened and she was crying, oh my God, all of this stuff in the house. And I said to her, look, don't worry. It's only money. And it's stressful and so on, but these guys are junkies and they're losers. And in 5 years' time, when we sell the house, or in 10 years' time, when we sell the house, we'll be laughing all the way to the bank. Where are they going to be? They're going to be still junkies and still pulling bongs. So F them, we'll go spend the money and we'll fix it and we'll be better off. We're not going to sell anything,
So don't let anyone, including a junkie who destroys your house, deter you from investing because long term,
it's all about the long term.
There will be the upside, which is, of course, that financial benefit in investing and that financial freedom that you receive from that.
And the deterrence and the fear, to be honest, massively drive me. You know, even I was at my last two properties I bought was right in the middle of as the interest rates were going up.
Yes.
And I was in the car with a business colleague of mine, one of my employees, and we were driving to a job. And he's like, because all the people that work for me basically get bullied into buying properties and become.
That's how much Ali believes in this, because everyone that works in his business, he has an engineering firm, is that correct, Ali? They all have to invest in property at some point.
That's right.
Because that's the motive that he has for them. So that's a really compelling story, which we'll share about in a second.
So but basically, we have like 18 employees and like 16 of them own houses. And in fact, now my company, Mobility Engineering, in our industry is being known for like, go and work for Ali because then you'll own a house. And it was someone actually, one of the last people was like, like I noticed that how everyone like owns houses working for you guys. It's pretty good. Like I should come and work for you, you know? And I'm like, it's going to be
It's the Australian dream, right?
Yeah, that's right.
To own your own property. So
it's, I find it's like a lot of confidence. And on that point, I was with my employee and he was like, oh, Ali, like, aren't you worried about another interest rate rise, blah, 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 and just spreading fear, constant fear. And I said to him, thanks. And he goes, why? And I go, when we get to the site, you're going to go do the job. I'm going to call the broker. And he's like, what do you mean? I go, your fear just confirmed that I need to buy more property. And he was like, no, that was the opposite of what I was trying to achieve. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Because if everyone's scared, then that's when you should be making moves. If everyone's going, oh, stop, then that's, in my opinion, when you should be making moves and pushing forward.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Yeah, I don't get deterred by the hard work. It is hard, but I guess if I can do it, then I can come on the other side and be better off.
And of course, part of the investing journey is that you are dealing with risk, right? At the end of the day, there's tenants you're dealing with, there's natural disasters that occur. These things happen. There's accidents, like people falling downstairs. And so, unfortunately, these are the things we have to deal with. Is there other challenges that may have hindered your progress along this investing journey for you, Ali?
Yeah, look, a big part of the house investment, property investment's an interesting one. So there's a couple of reasons why I really went, like, I'm not all in on property investing, but like probably 90% of my investments and wealth is in there, or maybe 80. And one of the reasons why is in Australia, it's almost a surefire bet because of the way that the government has set up the structure.
Yep.
So effectively, if you just buy property, you're riding the coattails of the government's like investment strategy. Mm. And I used to be on a board of a charity and there was a person there that was working for the government, and what she was explaining to me was, she was like a politician, and she was explaining to me that like something like 8 out of 10 politicians own 5 or more properties. And I thought to myself, well, if 8 out of 10 politicians, they make all the rules and the regulations, they're not going to let things go down, are they? They're going to let it keep going, in the right direction.
So as all the policies are sort of projected towards helping property investors, right?
Yeah. So if you understand that, then I guess you can have a bit of confidence in and not sort of worry about what's going to happen in terms of like the long term. Yes, you might see things go down and up. The other thing I found with houses are extremely emotional for people. People grew up in a house, especially in Australia, the family home, the home that you grew up in, that whole story around that. Yeah. And so what happens is, like I've seen this with so many people that get into investing with properties, they just get way too emotional about it. I can't believe that guy trashed my house. Well, it's not your house. You're not living in it. I can't believe that guy. Why would someone, like I'll give you an example. One of my houses, this guy kept like a cage of pet rats, like all these skinny naked rat things without any hair. It was disgusting. If I'm going to start worrying about, like one guy was like, doing a motorbike, servicing a motorbike in the middle of a unit. Like there's a lot of weird people out there.
In a unit, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was really bad. And so, basically, like, hopefully I'm not making it sound too bad, but there is a lot of positives around it as well. So with the positive side of things, the property investment thing, it's actually not that much work. It
is a passive investment strategy.
Yeah. So I have...
As long as you have property management in place.
Yeah. So if you have a loan, I guess with a bank, you've got to get like a property manager anyway. Yeah. So it's good to always be on top of your property managers and make sure that they're just doing the right thing and always increasing the rent. A little tip I have, always increase the rent no matter what the property managers say, and don't get emotionally involved with your tenants, because I had a very interesting story actually that I always share. My very first rental home, I didn't increase the rent for like 8 years. And then the lady, she, like her kids were like friends with our kids. So we sort of knew her in circles. And the lady basically was very upset with us because when we sold the house and she had to leave, she couldn't afford to stay there. And she wasn't keeping up with rental prices and they had doubled. And she was like, you guys kind of stuffed me because I didn't know that this was, I mean, it was kind of her responsibility, but at the same time.
Yeah, but you've done the right thing by the tenant to.
Well, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
But no, it would have been the right thing to push the right prices because then they would have been paying the right.
In line with the market, right?
In line with the market. And then they would have been able to make the right choice of whether they could stay in the area.
And this is just to not miscommunicate. At the end of the day, like, especially a tenant could feel hard done by, especially why is it that we're always trying to push rents up? But that's the nature of markets, isn't it?
That's right, yeah, and interest and inflation and so on. I mean, the government is pushing the rent up on living in this country every year with their taxes and inflation, so you got to pass the costs on, you know?
Yes.
And that's just how it is. And so yeah.
Reason, of course.
So, but like I have 11 properties. Each one of those has a loan. I spend like 2 hours a month on my properties. You know, I've got a nice spreadsheet with everything that you know, set it all up initially, and then and now.
So it doesn't take away from your day job so much.
No, if anything, and it gives me so much flexibility and freedom. And from a financial point of view, there's a lot of options you can have. You can, once you have lots of properties, you can do a lot with the banks. So one of the big things that I learnt through this journey was the idea of loans not being like, don't be scared of loans. So I was brought up by my dad saying loans are really bad. And, you know, as soon as you get a loan, you got to pay it off. And I always remember anytime he had like a house loan, a home loan, or any kind of loan, it was like so much stress in our house. Like the whole house knew about it and so much stress and so on. And when I went to like this class and they taught you about, like, I'd never learnt about it, taught you about how finance work. And what we were taught in school was a debt is a liability, right? And so liabilities is like a negative word. But what I then learned through this process is your liability is actually the bank's asset, right? So the bank on their balance sheet, your debt is their asset. So I thought, well, if I'm holding their asset, doesn't that make me kind of in power? So maybe I should hold a lot of their assets and as many as I can because that's their assets and I get to hold it. So that feels like it's like a powerful thing, you know? And I was kind of like not really knowing what I was doing, but thinking that seems like it makes sense to me. I should hold their assets. And so I was like, I'm no longer scared of loans. Give me loans and give me more loans. And I don't want to get rid of loans. And wherever I can, give me more loans. And what I found is those assets are helping me build my wealth, you know, so easily and so quickly. And when you scale it up to this big, I guess this big kind of like level, then you have a lot of flexibility as to what you can do with your assets and loans. So like I recently sold a house. I didn't need to pay off a loan. I could move the loan to another property because there was enough equity. And then that, you know, can sit in offset accounts, you know, it's so much advantage with that once you've got a large number of loans in terms of playing the
There's the flexibility and also the leverage of being able to make some calls and the bank will work with you, right?
That's right, because you have so many of their assets, you know, and so that was really an interesting thing. So that feels really empowering because when you're often in a single dwelling or two dwellings, you feel like you're at like the mercy of the bank. But I now don't feel at the mercy of the bank. I feel the bank's at mercy at me because I have so much of their assets in my property. So
you can also then negotiate better rates because you have so much of a loan size under your belt.
And you'll always have brokers and, you know, like my brokers and all of that, they're always working hard for me because I've got so many loans and they can make great money off me. And if they can refinance a whole bunch of stuff, that's a good windfall for them, you know. So
gives you more incentive to hold on to the loans because it's a competitive loan.
That's right, yeah. So all of that stuff is really good. And then on top of that, you know, the wealth profile, you know, like I have been able to over the last, like I started buying houses and stuff when I was young, when I was in my 20s because I was just bought my first house. But then I got rid of it all and I sort of started again from scratch at 35, I think it was, 35 or 36, yeah. And then I kind of started all from scratch and now...
So just to debunk that myth is like you've not always been successful with property investing since your 20s.
No.
You made a lot of mistakes. Not until your mid-30s did you go, wow, I'm going to actually start doing something and use the advice of the right people, the right property partners, then to go find the right brokers, whether it's a buyer's agent, then you must start making some right decisions after that.
Yeah, and most of that's actually in the last 5 years as
Yeah.
well. So even though I started the property
there you
investing
go.
then,
Yep.
I've really started to, I guess,
Snowball.
understand everything in the last 3 to 5 years, you know?
Yeah.
And that's when the real growth has happened, you know? And fast forward, like where I am now, I'm only at 11 properties, and that seems to be a lot based on a lot of standards. But for me, I feel like I'm very behind,
Yeah.
right? So I'm trying to get to 20, you know, but it gets a lot harder after 20.
And what happens at 20? Is it the financial freedom that it offers you, or what happens between 11 and to 20?
Pride.
Yeah,
just because I can.
Yeah.
You know? I initially thought, let me see if I can get to 10, and then I thought, you know what? It's giving me so much options with respect to wealth,
Yeah.
and building so much of my wealth. And what I'm seeing with that compounding growth, like sometimes my wealth increases like 70 grand in a month, you know, and so like that's amazing, you know. It's
And you and the truth is, you only spent 2 hours that month.
That's right,
isn't it, to do that? So that's the power of investing, and it's a very passive tool where you don't have to do much to get the most out of it, rather than going to work and spending 40 hours a week. And yes, that has its dividends, but also it requires a lot of energy.
Yeah, and this is actually really interesting. One of the reasons why I actually almost bully my team into getting properties and investments is, and this is what I found with me, job satisfaction increases. When you are not desperate for money from your job, and you know, hey, I don't need these guys, I can just quit whenever I want, I'll just go sell a property. Man, you turn up to the work a lot differently. When you rock up to work and you're like desperate for money and they have to pay you for your work, and if you lose that job, you're screwed. That's a very different attitude towards work than I can just rock up and go, you know what, I don't need to be here, so I'll just play my game, you know, and I'll do it my way. And if you don't like it, well, I'll go find someone that does, you know.
And your purpose is aligned then, right? Because you're not there just to get a paycheck. You're there because you want to be there.
Exactly.
To drive purpose.
Yeah, so that's a big part of it. So yeah, and in terms of the point of did I start too young? I think I actually did start early at 35. I'm still early at 35 because I actually learned something recently. So a huge recommendation for everyone is to read or listen to the audiobook of Matthew McConaughey. It's called Green Lights. I don't know if you've heard of it or not.
I haven't, no.
It is one of the most amazing experiences you'll have listening to that audiobook, because it's narrated by Matthew McConaughey. So it's like 8 hours of listening to him, and it's like you don't want to put it down because it's him. And
it's like a good movie.
Yeah, and it's him talking, and he's got all the different accents and stuff. I've listened to the book like 3 times.
Lovely.
He says something very profound in that book. And I guess that's something which I want to share with people, because I share with everyone. Something personal I found with myself. I know it's a lot of guys are like that, males are like that. I don't know about women because I haven't spoken to them too much about it. But I definitely know men are like this. Men, when they finish their school or uni and start work, in their mind, whilst they know retirement's at 60, they're going to make it by 40. They're going to make it by 30 or 40. In their mind, they're like, I'm going to make it. Everything's going to be done by 40. You can't, because you're learning until you're 40. So when you 40 is actually when your career starts. That's when your life starts. And that's when you pick up all of your learnings and start to use them to invest and to do everything like that. So if you've got nothing until you're 40, it's actually not a bad thing, because you've still got a lot of knowledge, you know, that you've built up, and you've had jobs, you've had all these different kind of skills that you've built up, and you can use those to accelerate your income, accelerate your wealth as a result of that, you know.
So it's never too late to start, right? And people can feel this way, especially when they get into their 30s, their 40s. Like, the truth is that you've accumulated all this knowledge just to start to be yourself and be who you think you would be at 40 and reap the rewards. Yeah,
and I mean, for me, I don't think it's late at all. And I think that for me, I'm literally only just getting started.
And you know, right now, one of the things that I think plays on a lot of young people's minds, because the media is always in their face about property is out of reach. And then you just said to me that you bought a house and you lived in this house in, you know, the Central Coast, and that was $260,000. And I think for a lot of people, the average Australian property is now $1 million, and that's 4 times as much as, you know, a $260,000 house. But the truth is, not every area costs $1 million. There are areas where you can afford to live that cost you a lot less than $1 million. And they've got to look at these options, because end of the day, if you're looking to, yes, I want to live in a house, and your goal is to always buy a house for your family, and you need that, well, there's that option, isn't there? The option is out there and it exists. Yeah, maybe not 260,000 these days, maybe 400,000, maybe 500,000 in a much more remote suburb compared to Sydney or inner city suburb. So, and
that house that I bought for 270, you can buy that now for like under 700. And I renovated that, and I actually saw it sell again for like 680 or something like that. It's a great house as a first home. And on that note, I guess it just depends on what you're trying to do in your life. One of the issues that there is in our modern society is, even though it did cause controversy, I do believe it, is the avocado on toast. Like, everyone's obsessed with going and having coffees, and, you know, I make my coffee at home. Like, I don't go buy coffee. I've got a coffee machine, you know, because every single one of those is like $5, and I eat like drink 8 coffees a day or something, you know. So like little things like that. You know, so many people are obsessed with, like, you know, driving nice cars and nice like stuff, and I just drive a Subaru, you know, like is spending money on all this. The only stuff I like to spend money on is houses.
Yeah,
know, so
I love that, you know, and you reap the rewards of that. And there is a time and place for enjoying nice things, and there's a delayed gratification that people are not comfortable with, right? It's sort of, I need it now, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of today's, in our society, when you have all the devices and things and you have to share everything, that can like cause a lot of stress and feel like you want to keep up. But yeah, like even like 6 months ago, my brother bought a 2-bedroom apartment in Wiley Park for 410 grand. So if you tell me, like, that's in Sydney, and that's 20 minutes from the city. Yeah. You know, and that was a 2-bedroom apartment. You know, it needed like 20, 30 grand worth of work, but sub 500 grand in Sydney.
And like if you did want to rent it out, you could live in it, right?
Yeah.
450 grand.
Yeah, and that's a great first home. You know, I lived in my first houses we lived in. Well, not first houses. We lived in apartments first. You know, me and my wife, we lived in an apartment for the first two and a half years. You know, and we saved and progressed and moved to the next place and just kept moving. You know, so that's
just start with humble beginnings, and you never know where it can take you. But start with some strong principles which you've had. I think one of the biggest telltale and I guess pieces that I think I've got from this, Ali, is that you could even make mistakes. Even your initial investments can be expensive, but starting with a modest sort of investment strategy and then getting the right people on board, like a good broker, a good buyer's agent, or at least go to some courses and start to educate yourself, right, with the right information. And then when you're not sure, engage someone. That's what the experts are there for. And then start making those right decisions, so you mitigate the chance of making these errors.
Yeah, and time. The team is the most important part. So right now, I have a team of people doing all of this stuff, and I don't actually do much. I said, I'll tell them, look, I've got this money, and then what do I do? And they say, do this, and I say, where do I sign? You know, I'm not going to question anything anymore, because that's the team I've built, and they're people that I trust, and the people that
over time as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the way I always suggest building the team as well is it's got to be very personal. So when I say personal, it's got to be someone that you actually respect personally and you get along with. So that is very important to me, because if there's some problem, I can ring him and I can say, hey mate, because we're mates, I can have that harder conversation with you rather than walk away, and I can have my problem solved, you know. So that's important. So all the people that buy properties off the back of my advice, they're all buying it through the brokers and things like that, because as I explained to them, is you're not going to beat them in terms of the skill. You want them to do it, and you might pay a bit extra for them, but generally speaking, they'll save you that money anyway. And so it's not a bad option. And so much so that now I'm looking to do looking either in the US or in Dubai. And what
diversified.
And what I'm doing there is I'm not buying properties or even looking at properties. All I'm doing is looking at team members. So I haven't looked at any properties in Dubai or America, but I've started interviewing brokers, accountants, you know, people like that, so I can start to get to know those people and get their referrals and build that team. And then, because I've learned that the team's important, not my knowledge of properties, it's the team. So I've got to now, if I want to do it again in Dubai, let me go start building a team there and start interviewing people. It might take longer, but then once you have the team, the speed accelerates. So I don't actually think the knowledge is the biggest thing, because I can sit down and I can do a whole bunch of research and maybe know more than you on tax depreciation. The thing is that you've got the team and you've got the people and you've got the contacts and, you know, you've got the speed. So I'm not going to be able to finish my job and then come, like if I finish my job and got home at the end of the day, your team has developed 11 reports for my 11 properties, and I'm going to sit there and go, okay, property number 1, let's have a think about it. You know what I mean? In 6 months' time, I might have 11 reports. So speed is really important in this game.
And so really, I guess the there, leverage on the people around you, the team around you, because once you do, you're investing in many years of experience in respective fields for them to make an informed decision for you in which you pay a small fee for.
That's right. Yeah.
And so that's a great point. I've actually never had anyone as a guest to ever say that. And I think that's a really profound piece of information that everyone should take on. Just to wrap up, Ali, today, I really appreciate the time. What's one piece of information or one thing that you would like to say to the audience that's going to really change someone's life out there who might have the 2 properties or not even started yet? What is it that you could say to them that would invoke maybe some change in their career or their life?
There's a lady that can't remember her name. I think it's the lady from she's got a saying and I love it. It's called "Just fucking do it."
Love it.
And that's it. Don't think.
Procrastinate.
Just do. Don't think.
Love it. Thank you so much, Ali. Really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you very much.